say is this: to be a helicopter pilot, you can't fear not one damn thing on this planet. If one thing scares you, don't fly a helicopter. Dogs, spiders, it don't matter. If one thing scares you, don't get in a helicopter, because you got to make some big boy, big girl decisions like right now when you're in a helicopter.
What's going on, Sarasota? My name is Brad Hannon.
Trey Martell.
Felipe Colon.
And we've got an amazing guest with us today. Not only is this guy in the coolest business ever, sports cars, but not just sports cars, all kinds of auto, but I read somewhere, and I'll let him tell us if it's true or not, that they did over $8 billion in auto sales last year. So we've got Victor Young on the show. Welcome, Victor.
Hey, thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Thanks for coming on.
Hey.
So is it true?
Yeah.
I mean, not everything you read on the internet's true,
Yes.
but over $8 billion
Over
in
$8
sales.
billion. We're Morgan Automotive Group. We're the second largest employer in Tampa Bay behind Publix.
Goodness gracious.
So,
how many units is that?
tens of thousands.
That's
We
crazy.
make them move. We move them. We don't collect them.
And so I know that the sports cars is tied to the Lamborghini here, but is that like BMWs? Is that Audis? What kind of
Lamborghini
cars?
and BMW here in town. Yeah, we own some other stuff here.
And then in Tampa,
Yeah, we're the largest in the state of Florida.
Okay.
So we recently acquired the Wild Group. People know them in Sarasota and
Yeah.
Reeves and Tampa Bay. A couple of years ago, and the O'Brien.
No kidding.
Group
I own a
and
car from Reeves. Jeez.
The O'Brien
Just a little
Group
too late.
down in Fort Myers, and
Okay.
we make some acquisitions here and there.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Humble guy. Well, I know that that's not all you do, but I want to first talk about the auto industry and how you got into that. I heard that's a cool story. So how the heck do you get into auto sales? And
I didn't wake up as a child and say I want to be an automotive. So that didn't happen. I was a kid who loved to go fast. If it was a horse, a mini bike, a dirt bike, a car. Built my first car when I was 15. Built my first race motor in my own go-kart. My dad buys me this 5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton cart, and I order a kit. He comes home one day and the motor's taken apart. He was so pissed.
5 horsepower is just not quite
It
enough.
wasn't enough. He was like, "You killed this thing."
So you hot rodded a go-kart.
Hot rodded a go-kart. Had to run on alcohol with a governor. I was like, this thing was just insane. So I've always loved speed.
Yeah.
But my first career actually was in television and radio. So
You got the voice for it, that's for sure.
That's what I was gonna say.
Good grief. You're the best
Yeah.
voice that's ever been on Sarasota Speaks thus
I was
far.
happy to use it. I was like, man, I get to be on a podcast, use the voice here. So.
Let's go. Let's go.
So television, radio. My first job was at Fox affiliate in Tampa Bay. Was in master control production, post editing, all that stuff. I was in. We used to switch. You guys aren't old enough to know what a switcher is, but when you used to see things on TV, there was a guy who actually manually switched programming on the television. And
We
so
call it a producer Eric.
Yeah. E-dub, baby. E-dub.
That's right.
So, but yeah, started there. Business was great. And later on, we had a public company come in and buy out a station that I was at, a radio station at the time. I was on air personality when that happened. I kind of went from, the back of house to talent. And, and so next thing you know, there's a guys in blue suits show up at my station and say, "Hey, have you heard of Sarbanes-Oxley before?" And I'm like, "Sounds like a really bad disease." One of the guys laughs and goes, "It kind of is. We bought your place, and let me tell you, here's your new pay plan. And when you touch that microphone, it's now inventory. Every time you turn that mic on, we tell you what to say, and here's your playlist."
There you go.
And it was
All because of Sarbanes-Oxley?
Sarbanes-Oxley.
That's that
baby.
law. You want to describe what that is? Or that's too much.
We don't get too
technical.
complicated. It's kind of boring. However, I'll say this: I'm being an acquisition guy and being involved in a lot of M&A. When you buy a company, you don't buy it for. At least I never bought for cash flow, unless you're just someone who's really you got cash out there and you're afraid your cash is going to die on you. And you're not happy where it's at. You buy it to increase your multiple on it. So if I buy it at a 7 multiple, I need to turn that 7 times earnings or 7 times EBITDA. I need to turn it into a 2 or a 3. Get my ROI back on this thing. So. They buy it and they gotta get all your expenses in line, and so they start cutting everything. And of course, there's laws, when you're public and that you got to abide by. But when you're 20-something, 22 years old, you don't care about Sarbanes-Oxley.
Right?
It's like, who? What? I quit. How about that? So I also wrestled for a little while. And, wrestled in high school. Did some freestyle. My brother comes back from the military. meets a guy by the name of Mike Bolay, which is Terry Bolay's cousin, Hulk Hogan's cousin. And they start wrestling at Malenko's gym. And next thing you know, he's like, hey, you want to come down here and wrestle? I'm like, yeah, no, not happening. And finally, he's like, hey, there's some guys from Japan doing some shoot wrestling and freestyle. Why don't you come down? I was like, all right, I'll do that.
What high school is this?
I went to King High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is after high school.
This is after, yeah.
For a job. He's talking wrestling
adult
for a
stuff.
job.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I got to, matter of fact, my first matches were with, most memorable matches were with Jumbo Beretta and Kane, who ends up becoming,
WWF,
WWEF, all that good stuff. And,
that's wild.
So
I'm gonna need to see picture evidence of this at some point. That's hilarious.
You know what? My wife hates my pictures in tights, man, but I'm like, everyone wants to see this. They want to see it. Every time I whip it out at a party, she's like, put that thing down.
I may have just changed my mind about that.
Look,
Felipe.
I walked into that one.
hey,
Oh man,
I look good in tights. That's all I can say.
So, how do you get? I know Victor a long
quickly
time.
change the subject.
I've never heard any of this. How do you get from there to? You essentially were there at the beginning of Morgan Automotive Group, which, as you said, is the largest automotive group in the state. Walk us through how that was founded and what your role was.
So my business partner, great guy, Larry Morgan.
Larry Morgan.
Yeah, Larry Morgan. Larry Morgan from Missouri, as they say, Missouri. Don't say Missouri. Right. I think he's a Mizzou fan too. Sorry to hear that. But great guy, humble beginnings. Grew up in Missouri. Went to go work for Bridgestone Firestone at some point, and out of college, and opens his own tire stores. And so he literally opens a chain of tire stores and grows it to a multi-billion-dollar company. Sells it later on to Bridgestone Firestone for well over $1 billion. Wow. And so gets out of the business, and he's just kind of golfing a little bit, and he's bored. And at the time, I'd gone through my stages of automotive where I'd been, general managers and general sales managers and pretty much every position in a dealership. And
you start out selling cars?
Start out selling cars. Yeah. Got out of radio business and, accidentally wandered into automotive
because they were hiring.
There was a guy at a nightclub. We used to do nightclub remotes, and so again, this dates me, but we would do live broadcasts from nightclubs from the station. And so I'm there, and this guy keeps giving me his business card. Hey man, you know everybody. You'd be great at selling cars. I'm like, whatever, dude, leave me alone. So a few weeks later, I find the card.
That's how it happens.
Yeah, find this car in the pocket. Call the guy up, and he gets me an interview. I didn't realize he was getting a $500 bird dog fee. Is the only reason.
Yeah, of course.
I ended up his boss about 6 months later and just excelled through the business.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So accidentally, I get in automotive. Love cars. It was a good little,
Yeah, of course.
Good little transition for me. So, but yeah, that's how I got in automotive.
And how'd you get? So we're talking about how you got linked up with Larry Morgan.
Larry Morgan.
Larry Morgan.
So at the time, I did my tour of duty with the Publix again. I circled back full circle. I worked for AutoNation, Sonic Automotive, and so worked for some public companies and in automotive as dealer operator and general manager. And so at the time, I was the president of Loki Motor Company in Clearwater, Mercedes-Benz, Infiniti, Smart, and we had some exotic car showcase stores. And sitting at my desk, and my phone rings. And prior to that, a few weeks, some mutual friends saying, "Hey, man, there's this guy. His name's Larry Morgan. He just sold Tires Plus for, over $1 billion, and he wants to get in retail automotive, and you guys should meet. He's a really smart guy." But other people are telling him, "Hey, you need to meet Victor Young." And so I'm sitting at my desk at Loki Mercedes. My phone rings, and it's Larry Morgan. He goes, "Hey, keep here. We need to meet." So I said, "I'm hearing the same thing." He says, "Tell you what." He goes, "Meet me at the Perkins restaurant on Highway 60 in Gulf to Bay." And I'm like, "Is that how billionaires roll, as Perkins?" All right. So he goes, "I'll tell you the significance when we get there." So meet him at Gulf to Bay at 60 at the Perkins. And he says, "I did my first deal with," it was like, who was the bank before Barnett? It's like Nations Bank or something.
That would be a question for me.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there an old time around? Hey, old dude. Yeah. Nation Bank. Okay. Because I did my first tire deal. Hey, don't put me on the old dude list, man. I'm an old dude too.
So the audience knows Felipe's dad's.
Felipe's dad's here.
That's the resident.
He
old
abuses
guy.
me all the time, so I have to get a shot at him when I can.
That's right.
So anyway, he said, "I did my first tire deal acquisition. I bought some stores, and I signed the paperwork in this restaurant with the bank and
It's a lucky restaurant.
And he said, I felt that you and I need to meet somewhere significant. And that's how it all started. And literally we just sat there and with pen and on napkins and just structured how we do business together. And that was it. A couple years later, we did our first acquisition together. He had another store at the time. We bought BMW Sarasota. That was we closed on January 15th, 2008 on that deal. And we've just grown significantly since then.
2008 was a great year, huh?
It was, yeah, right? Yeah. You close on January 15th, and then 2 months later, you officially roll into the recession.
Yeah. Wow. So what was that like? I got to ask.
You know, I tell you what, if you can make it through that recession when things were just chaotic, when you didn't even have to, default. Literally, a bank could margin call you just based upon your real estate appraisal, meaning there were dealerships that had never missed a note, never missed a payment. Their ratios were in line, but the bank, if they could get some of that HARP money or that money back from the recession, literally they could say, okay, your billing was worth $20 million, which we have on the books for 18, and but today's appraisal is coming in at about 10. So, 30 days to write us a check for $8 million to get yourself back, your ratio back in line, or we got to call in all your notes.
So you're saying that the bank's customers became worth more dead than they were alive.
I look at Bill Hurt Chevrolet, the biggest Chevy dealer. He accounted for 15% of every Chevy sold in the world. Wow. This guy didn't make it. He didn't turn the corner.
That's wild.
So it was crazy times back in 08. So
did it open up some opportunity for you guys to buy and grow during that time, though?
You know, it did, and I think it showed who the pioneers were. You know, who had some what's the word I'm looking for?
Balls.
That's it. Oh. Those things, right?
Those things. Who looks best in a singlet?
Bring them a blue singlet, baby. And we added a Lamborghini dealership in 09, which you're in the heart of the recession. Yeah. So signed a dealer agreement in December of 2008, and you get your first Lamborghinis that hit the ground in April of 09, and people thought, absolutely insane.
Where else were they opening Lamborghini dealerships other than Sarasota?
The only one. That was the only one.
Was it Sarasota or was it Tampa?
Nope, Sarasota.
Oh wow,
Sarasota.
Okay.
Yeah. We were dealer number 31 in America that opened, and I don't think number 32 opened for several years after,
This is an 09?
Yeah, this is an 09.
I didn't even know we had a Lamborghini dealdership before.
Oh, we got to get into a Lamborghini.
Well, I mean, I know the new one, but that's new, right?
You know why? Because the first building, when we bought the BMW dealership, there was a delivery center, a 12,500 square foot delivery center, kind of off the back road, that middle road between BMW and Lamborghini.
I gotcha.
And so we actually ended up taking that brand new building, that needs CO'd yet, and then we actually remodeled it into our Lamborghini showroom.
I gotcha.
And then when we acquired the property up front after that, we moved it a few years later. We moved it up front to Clark.
So
Road.
that wasn't like a brand new store. That was just moving it up to the close to the road.
Yeah, we're relocating it from the back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you could tell I couldn't afford a Lamborghini. Still can't. So.
Well, I think you can. Most people who can tell you they can.
Yeah. This is going back to his auto sales days right here.
See, look.
You're not buying a Lamborghini. You're buying a lifestyle.
Yes. I hung around the old, and you are. I hung around the old dudes, man. It's like old dudes. They have a bunch of money in their pocket, and you see a bunch of ones on top. The young guys, they have the hundreds on the other side. The old dudes never show your hundreds, son. Only show your singles.
That's a good lesson.
See
the problem that I always run into is I don't have any singles, so I can't hide the hundreds.
Got rid of all of them.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
That's a pretty wild origin story. I mean, you know, most people would think that somebody in your position, you got there a way more convoluted way, but it was just like that. A phone call, a meeting at a Perkins, and bam, $8 billion a year in revenue.
I have people ask me all the time, if you had to go back, knowing what you went through during the recession, would you do it again? It's like, absolutely. Because the world changed after the recession.
Yeah.
Access to capital changed. Everything changed.
I mean, it's almost repeating itself now, is it not?
Yeah.
It's a good time to expand, continue to expand.
Absolutely.
So I have a question.
Yep.
What kind of car does a man like yourself drive? Or what is your favorite car? I'm sure you have multiple.
Wow. That's a tough question. My collection is so weird, and I can say that because
weird.
Yeah, I'm building this motor enclave, one of the Tampa motor enclave units, and so I start talking to designers, and the designer, she asked me, well, what do you want your car area to look like? Because there's an upstairs, and that was easy, right? My bourbon room, my cigar room, I got my my Euro doors over the track so I can watch. All that was easy, It's like downstairs, what do you want that motif to look like? And I was like, holy smokes. I've got like old school, big tire, big block, 70s muscle cars and exotic cars and German cars and weird military trucks. I'm like, man, I'm like a weirdo when it comes to my collection. So I'm like, okay, I need to find it. And so I've been really kind of shrinking it to, I've got my old metal that I'll never get rid of. But
give us some specifics so we can clip it. I mean, that story you told out there, I mean, we need to hear about some of these individual cars.
So one of my cars that I'll never get rid of is I've got a 1970 Nova SS, big block, reverse valve body, 4-speed, 33 spline Mosier, actually strange axles on the back of this thing, wheelie bars and a parrot chute.
Oh, yeah.
And this thing hits so hard that it gives you freaking whiplash. When you get out of it the next day, feels like someone tried to break your damn neck.
Might have to
call right
Dr.
there,
Rob on that one.
the kind of that adrenaline you get from that type of car there's nothing else like it. But then on the way here, there was a guy in a Hayabusa on the interstate, and I probably left him by 20 cars. But
wait, did you drive it here?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going outside after this.
Yeah. So you gotta have a different car for everything.
Yeah. When you're coming on Sarasota SpeaX podcast, you break out the Nova. I love it.
Actually, no, the Nova's not out there. Oh, that's something else. The Nova drinks so much gas that I probably could get like 12 miles out of a tank. I feel I have to do like a carbon emissions offset. I buy trees after I drive the Nova because I know it's probably not the cool thing to do.
That's great.
So I don't drive it much. That made you uncomfortable, didn't it?
I do like trees and clean air.
I plant lots of trees. I do love trees. Yeah. So I don't drive the Nova a lot.
So what else is in the collection? You said BMW 850 that used to belong to a certain celebrity.
M2.
That's a nice choice.
M2 competition.
Okay.
Lamborghini STO. Things of an animal. I do have a Ferrari F12 in the collection just because it's got that F1 design, the F1 lights. It's kind of a cool car, the bridge design. You got to have one of those old V12, you got to have that in there.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm looking for, actually. So,
are you really?
Yeah, to add to my collection of 0.
That's lower on my list, but I see the merit.
Lamborghini Revelto's on the way. 1,015 horsepower hybrid. I got the boost button, so I can have Toto be like boost box. I can do the whole Formula One thing.
You know what he's talking about?
Somewhat. I mean, he goes pretty deep.
The Mercedes Formula One race team. I love that guy. He's like the most emotionless man in the world. It's kind of cool.
You got to watch the documentary if you haven't seen it.
I have not.
'll know what he's talking about. F1.
It's good. It's pretty.
It really is. My wife watched the whole damn series. If that tells you everything.
So your wife's F1 knowledge is greater than mine at this point.
It for sure would.
I got to step up my game.
Yeah. It for sure would be.
But we could talk about cars a long time, so I don't want to get too stuck on that.
Yeah, let's talk about helicopters instead.
That's probably his current favorite vehicle right now. I would say, right?
Hey, look, we're talking about the Colonel, and he's got some pretty fast cars, but. Always when people start really talking about how fast their cars are, I'm like, tell you what, how about we race to Naples and I give you a 20-minute head start? I'm gonna bring out the Bell Jet Ranger.
Wow. So does that? I mean, you've got your own pilot's license, right, to fly the choppers?
Yep.
Does that scare you anymore after like the Kobe and just in general, they're more dangerous?
When I look at the Kobe Bryant situation. And it's kind of crazy. People are like, why do you listen to in the crash test or crashed
the voice recording
investigations and it's like because you want to know what happened, right? So with his situation, it was rule C-fit, continuous flight into terrain. And so, number one, if they'd have waited 20 minutes, it would never happened because the fog would have burned off. Number two, if the guy really knew how to fly instrument, he would have known he was flying down into a mountain instead of flying up. I mean, there were just a lot of little things. It was just a pilot error, just a bad pilot situation.
Yeah.
Pilot overconfidence, didn't want to look weak in front of the greatest, one of the greatest of all time in basketball, and just made some, we call it go, no-go situations. And I remember the first thing I learned from one of my first CFI, this is back years ago, is he said, if it doesn't look good on the ground, the shit doesn't look any better when you get in the sky. You just can't pull over to fix that tire. So, if it doesn't look good, don't fly it.
Yeah.
Just don't fly it. Get home-itis. I watched the guy in the helicopter last year who's flying with his tail boom on fire, trying to make it to the airport. Stick it on the ground. When you got a problem, I'll land it in Walmart parking lot. I'll put it out on State Road 70. If it doesn't look good, I'm coming down so I can call someone and say, call my insurance company.
You get in trouble for that?
Not an emergency. You can pretty much, in an emergency situation, you can pretty much do whatever you got to do.
Right.
Yeah.
To survive.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I'd rather have to fill out the craziest report ever and it be suspended for 2 weeks or 3 weeks while they investigate my decision making than to be dead.
Yeah. So how often do you fly and why do you fly? Like, is it something that's for convenience? Is it just purely for sport?
Here's what I say is this. To be a helicopter pilot, you can't fear not one damn thing on this planet. If one thing scares you, don't fly a helicopter. Dogs, spiders, it don't matter. If one thing scares you, don't get in a helicopter. Because you got to make some big boy, big girl decisions like right now when you're in a helicopter. When I start flying, it was airplanes. And, something happens in the airplane, you call your wife, baby, I love you. I'm looking through the pilot manual. I'm gliding down. You can do all types of stuff. In a helicopter, you start hearing something going bad, it's going bad fast, and you better drop that collection and stick it on the ground before that rotor stops. Auto-rotate it now. Right. So your decision-making has to be so precise, and in that moment, you got to block out the entire world, and it's just you and that machine. So that's what I like about helicopters is it's like my Nova. It's like, damn, that thing could have killed me. I love it.
I think that's exactly why I don't like them.
Yeah,
and I'm not scared of much, but damn.
Put me in the don't fly a helicopter camp.
So no, but here's a helicopter
I'll
pilot,
go for
right?
a ride, but
so here's your average helicopter pilot. So I'm not talking about the crazy dudes who flew in like Nam or Afghanistan, but even your average commercial helicopter pilot, you're flying along, you got both feet controlling your tail section, so your yaw, keeping this thing from one to auto rotator or not auto, but spin around on you. So you've got both feet at work. You've got pitch and power, in your left hand. You got your cyclic, in your right hand, and you're controlling direction and a lot of other things.
What'd you have in your left hand?
Well, it depends. Lefties or not. So,
come on, Trey.
I knew he was going to go there. I knew. But anyway, strong roofing, baby. You want a strong roof?
Strong.
Left hands only on that roof. So, I know this will probably get cut.
We don't cut anything.
No. Just going to run, right?
Yeah.
We let it roll.
We're not cutting nothing out.
Where were we?
He's thinking about it now. He's like, all right.
So Pastor Craig, but anyway, so where was I?
A lot of moving parts.
teaching
Right, so check this out.
Yeah.
So your feet, your left hand, your right hand, you're listening for noise because normally the first sign of a problem is normally a sound. It's normally not your gauge telling you. You hear something, man, my turbine sounds different. My main rotor's making a funny noise. I'm hearing a clunking sound. So normally it starts with a sound, and then pretty quickly because of how much power you're putting down, then you'll normally get an instrument or a gauge. It'll start telling you something. And then from there, if you're not already making decisions, then you're already behind the 8 ball. So, I go to like Bell Flight School out in Texas and fly with Army pilots for a week every year and, learn emergency procedures and just do crazy things in the aircraft just to keep my skills high. But here's what I love most about flying a helicopter.
You're making Felipe sick over here.
Right? If we didn't want to fly a helicopter before, definitely don't
You're not
want to
getting
do it
excited
now.
yet about flying
I'm
helicopters?
getting motion sickness.
If you've ever been scared in your life.
The particulars of this.
I've talked about getting my pilot's license to fly planes, and that's exactly why. All of the things he said about planes versus what he said.
I'm going to do the
planes.
plane. I'm going to do the plane with the ballistic chute at some point.
Yeah, planes are easy.
That one I like.
You mean the helicopter?
No, the plane. The plane. The one that has the parachute in case you get into trouble.
The cap system.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
The Cirrus
The ballistic.
SR.
The Cirrus SR.
I gotcha.
Exactly.
Training wheels.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey, listen. There haven't been any fatalities in that plane, from what I hear.
Hey, listen, I don't even have to ask. I know you're having a blast getting to know Victor like I am as well, but hang on tight because we're going to get to know him a little bit more with rapid fire questions.
Hello, my name is Victor Young. I'm the managing partner for Morgan Automotive Group. BMW of Sarasota, Lamborghini Sarasota, founder and CEO of Dunamis Premium Spirits, and I'm a helicopter pilot. And this is Rapid Fire. If I was a professional wrestler, my entrance theme song would be Chris Stapleton's Tennessee Whiskey, but I would substitute it with Dunamis Whiskey. I would do that. That'd be kind of cool. An item on my bucket list I'd like to cross off. I like to go to Japan and forge my own samurai sword. I'd like to do that. Wow, that's a tough one. My favorite album of all time. It's tough because I like a lot of different music. But I'm going to go modern day so someone actually understands what I'm going to say or knows the album. I'm going to say Bruno Mars 24 Karat.
Girls, what y'all trying to do?
Wow, who is the coolest person that I've ever met? Wow. I say from just a sheer cool factor that there's something that's like 40 layers deep. I say the coolest person I've ever met has been Bill Clinton. Just cool. You know what? I'm gonna go old school Arnold Schwarzenegger. I just like the good old get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper!
That's a great quote. So 5 years ago, I would probably have turned down being on a manned mission to Mars. Today, I actually might say yes. I cannot live without ice cream. Ice cream is my weakness. Half-baked Ben & Jerry's. The advice I'd give to any and every aspiring entrepreneur is understand cash flow and the speed of business. You can grow yourself out of business if you don't manage your cash flow. Always the unstoppable force beats an immovable object, every time. The best cocktail in Sarasota you can find at Mediterraneo's, because they do serve Dunamis Premium Spirits at Mediterraneo's on Main Street. And you can get an amazing old-fashioned there.
All right, listen, so we got cars, we got helicopters, you got a cigar room above your, what do you call that thing?
Motor Enclave.
A motor enclave, yep. Okay, and I hear there's some other entrepreneurial efforts and something that would go along great with that. So tell us about the what is it?
Dunamis Premium Spirits.
Premium Spirits. Dunamis Premium
Ancient
Spirits.
Greek word.
Okay.
Ancient Greek word. It means it's the highest level of excellence and greatness.
Oh.
And so when I built this brand, I'm a humble guy, clearly. No, just kidding.
I'm glad cut that. I'm glad you said it and not me. I was going there.
No, you know what? Here's the funny thing is this, and I joke about it, but when you're building a brand, it's like, okay, if this is my legacy brand, right? And it's like, how is the world going to remember me when I'm gone? And I've got to put a little piece of myself into this brand. What has been the one thing that's overcome all the mistakes I've ever made in life? Because, in these type of shows, we talk about all the good stuff I've done, right? But I was like, I had my first daughter when I was 18 and dropped out of college 3 times. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I did wrong. I mean, you pretty much bring it up as a young man. I checked the box. I did it. So there was a lot of things I had to overcome along the way. And the way that I was able to overcome those things was just focusing on being great and better every day. And so every time I failed,
1% better every day.
That's it. And so I remember there was a project I worked on, and ended up being something huge. So I won't say the name of it, but I'll give you the gist of the project. I'll tell you.
Come on.
So I'm working on this project.
We got to know the name of it.
I'll tell you about
that one. I'm pulling out.
All right. I'll tell you about it in a minute.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I'm working on this project. I'll tell you 2 cool stories. But anyway, I'm working on this project, and and so I had some time with this guy, and they were talking about me for this pretty big position, and so I just go in. I got my little, my financial statements and all my stuff, and I start going over everything. And the guy looks at me and he says, "Because you don't know, do you?" And I'm like, "No, what?" It's like,
Nope.
It's like you sit here and you spout out your, $250 million a year in sales, and this is your ROI, and this is your EBITDA. And I go, "Man, you talk about it like it's a day in the park." He goes, "Whether this works out or not, I'm going to share something with you, and you can take it for what you think it is." He says, "Every now and again, you got to toot your own horn, because what you're doing at your age is not normal." And when I was raised, my dad's from North Carolina, humble family, worked outside as a kid. And so it was like, just shut up and go to work and get it done. Be a man, get your job done, take care of your family. And that's how I was raised, but in that moment I was a little perturbed with this guy. Cause I'm like, who's this guy telling me that I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know how to take it. But I thought about it later on, and it's like, you got to know your brand. You got to be on brand. You got to know who you are, and you don't got to be pompous about it and arrogant, but you got to be able to speak to it and let people know you know who you are and what you represent,
absolutely.
what you do. And that was like a turning point for me in my life, was to really get out and go, okay, who's Victor Young? What do I represent? And how am I going to speak to it?
How old were you at this point?
At this point, I am my late 20s, actually.
Okay.
I was that guy who, my problem with being in a classroom was I started working a family business at 10 years old. And so I knew balance sheets and estimates and leadership. When I was 13, 14, I was running crews of grown-ass men, outside, and I was out working them at 13, 14 years old. So now you put me in a classroom with a guy who's telling me about hypotheticals that's probably 10 years old, has never done it, and I'm like, I can't sit here anymore.
Right.
So my strengths actually were my weaknesses to a sense, until I learned how to control them and find out who's Victor Young, who's on brand for Victor. So that was a great moment, and working for Governor Scott was a cool moment. Got vetted by the House and the Senate, and for a college board, that was another funny moment for me. At the time, I get this call from this individual who's Rick Scott. I almost laughed because Rick Scott's not calling me. Followed the governor.
It's the recording.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right. I was waiting for the
Donate $10.
But it was one of those moments. And
Nikki Haley texts the crap out of me right now every day, like 5 times.
I'm getting 3 texts a week, easy.
But did you donate?
No, I'm not a donor. I'm a worker.
I'm not a donor.
I'm not part of the donor class, Victor. Maybe one day.
I think you could be donor class. You could be donor class. But again, another moment where I wasn't an academician and ended up being on a college board. So it's like one of those funny moments of, that was never on point for Victor. That was never like something that I wanted to do, was be on a state college board on a gubernatorial appointment. So how do you end up in these places?
What college was that?
It was for Pasco Hernando State College.
Okay.
And so it's like, how do you end up in places that aren't necessarily in your wheelhouse? And then so I started looking at, what's my brand? What makes people think I'd be good at that? And so I started to realize what I was good at, and that was excellence. Everything I touch is like, all right, we got to be the best. Whether it's wrestling, whether it's feature film, whether it's creating Dunamis premium spirits, the highest level of greatness and excellence, and so how do you make a brand, call it Dunamis? It's an alcohol brand. What does that even mean? So it's like, okay, we've been making liquor the same way for thousands of years. What do you really do to make it better?
What do we do?
You tell us.
What do you do? I got some secret recipes.
Hold on to that real quick, because what's so funny about this is I was at Barhana actually the other day. They have some incredible bartenders, mixologists is what they call them.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, give me I'll do Casamigos Reposado, soda with lemon or something, right? And he's like, you don't want that. No offense, George Clooney. He's like, you don't want that stuff, man. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's all of these celebrity liquors are, they're a step above the worst quality ingredients that you can use, and just the basic stuff. And they're sweetened and they taste good, but they're not quality, right? Let me give you something else. And he introduced me to I don't know what it was, but it was, I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but I got a real education in it at that moment and just the ingredients. And so the moment you said that you had Dunamis premium spirits, and then you talked about excellence, I was like, all right, I'm going into ingredients. Like what's so good about it, and why are you making it better?
I'll give an example, and I'll use vodka for an example. All right, because everyone drinks vodka at some point in their life. Some earlier than others, but anyway. so what's the difference between a $15 handle of vodka that you can just pour versus a
Popov?
Right, Pop, like, yeah, that you get to see a couple times, or a great mermaid vodka, a craft vodka, right?
The grain that you use, or
well, it's a lot. So I give an example. So when you distill liquor, you got the heads and the tails, right? So you got the heads that comes off, and you really don't want that. That's not really made for drinking. And then the tails are, the flavor profile's off. It's weak. It's not what you want. And so the hearts is what you really want to drink. Well, when you got these big companies that all they care about is making the cheapest vodka that they could stick in that plastic jug and get to a consumer, everything goes in there. And by law or by, regulation, if the heads and tails are beneath a certain level, then it's technically you can drink it. Well, there's a lot of things we can do that maybe aren't really good for us.
So
right?
what are the heads and tails? The heads are like the early part of the distillation process, and the tails are the end.
Yeah.
And then okay.
So you want the hearts. You want what's in the middle. You want the good spirit in the middle. That's one part of it. So now all of a sudden they throw all that stuff in there. So when you drink something, you're like, man, I feel great the next day. Or you drink something, you're like, man, I got the worst headache ever. You might have got a little bad part of that, the heads that came off of that thing, that's part you really don't want to drink. That alcohol might be maybe not the type of alcohol, because alcohol changes at different temperatures.
right?
The same run, you could get isopropyl alcohol, or you can get Jet A off of it, right?
Right.
So it just depends on how you make it. It's distilled spirits plant. So that's one. Two, charcoal filtration. We charcoal filter things multiple times, and that charcoal takes off again some of the bad stuff off that alcohol and really cleans it up, cleans the flavor up on it. Now all of a sudden you start to really taste the flavor of the grains. You're just not tasting high proof punch in the gut alcohol. You go, oh,
It's not moonshine anymore.
it's almost like you become a master distiller sommelier. The first time I went to Napa, the guy's like, there's leather, there's buckling. I'm like, he's lying. there's no buckle. There's no oak in there.
Sounds like an expensive
any of
pair
it.
of
You're
shoes.
drinking grapes, man. But when I actually, later on, I'm like, oh, I feel so ignorant. I just drink so much in Napa, and now that guy told the truth. So it's like, when you really get to start to taste the ingredients, the malted barley, what the barrel does, if it's a barrel aged spirit, when you clean up the spirit, good water profile. We use a reverse RO on our spring water, because if we left all these minerals in the actual spirit itself, and it changes. So for all the country boys who worked on and lived on a well before, the water you drink at 80 feet tastes different from a 120 and 200, depending on what minerals are down there, right? And so all those minerals will change the flavor profile of your spirit. Now, every time you go have a drink of something else, it tastes different.
You want to keep it consistent.
You want it consistent, the quality consistent. You want it pure. You want it to the point where you can drink it and it's smooth, it's clean, it's healthy. You get all the good things and not the bad things from it. So the process is almost more important than where you got your corn from.
Right.
Where you get, you don't want to get it from, some EPA.
But the corn's got some importance too.
Corn's got some importance. Right. Yeah. So all those things, and every flavor. We'll talk about the Zulu Hotel gin for a minute. We make a gin called Zulu Hotel Airman's Gin. And so I talked to a lot of helicopter pilots. I'm like, hey man, we got the 8 hour rule. We can't drink for 8 hours. So the time you have a drink to the time you get in the cockpit, 8 hours has to pass. Every now and again, you like to have a drink. You're laid over somewhere, or you're whatever. You want to drink something. What do you look for? Well, I don't want to be sick the next day. I want to feel good, and I don't want to feel like I put something bad in my body, because most pilots, if they can't fly, they'd rather die. And literally, I know pilots that if they can't fly, take them out of their misery. They'd love it. So what they put in their body is important to them. So we made a gin that has 13 all-natural botanicals, no extracts, no chemicals, no added flavor.
Charcoal
filtered, micron filtered, with all natural botanicals, and it's so smooth, it's so clean. You don't smell it 5 days later on you because all the bad stuff is still hanging on your tongue like a gingivitis or something. So it's all those things make the difference. That's what makes it excellent. And then part of that is our lifelong journey to find the next excellent process. Combining old world techniques with the highest technology that we can find.
I'm over here trying to have dry January, and I feel like I need a drink now.
Hey, we're drinking, man.
It does make it sound pretty good, huh?
Well, the pilots are looking for what we're looking for, a little buzz with no hangover.
That's
right?
true. What spirits do you guys make right as of now?
So we have Zulu Hotel Airman's Gin. We have Mermaid Vodka, which was an acquisition brand for us.
Okay.
And so great vodka. We have Bianca Supreme 5-year age rum. And if you like aged rum, that's good.
We see who does.
John Cologne's favorite.
That's right.
Does Gulf Coast distribute Mermaid Vodka?
They do.
Yes.
Oh, they do.
I've had it then.
Yeah.
I think
they
do
too.
And
then final our signature, our halo brand is our Dunamis Interstellar Bourbon. And it's a 5-year barrel aged bourbon in a number 4 charred barrel, heavy charred barrel. And the reason I like the heavy charred barrel is because if you leave in the barrel for at least 4 years, which a lot of bourbons people drink are pretty young. They're 3 years. And at a 3-year bourbon, it's not as good as a 5-year bourbon or an older bourbon. At 5 years, that barrel is really giving you its best. 4 years, 4.5 years, you start getting the caramelization, the vanilla notes, the cherry,
the leather,
the buckling, versus if you do a light char young bourbon, you can't put a young bourbon in a heavy char barrel because it'll get a little bit of burn flavor. You don't get the sweetness, the smoothness out of it. So what they'll do is you'll do a young bourbon in a light char. So now it's woody, it's oaky, it's smoky, which is cool if you like that. I like higher proof, so we barrel at 90. In order to be considered a bourbon, you got to be at least 90 proof. You got to be first 3 years in a virgin American white oak barrel, has to be made in America, 51% corn, and it has to be charred barrel. But so I like to do, the heavier char because it's smoother at a higher proof. So you can still get a nice warm feel as it goes down, but it doesn't burn your esophagus out. And you don't end up like that dude over there, man. He just shot out, drank too much old dude bourbon. Talking about no tonsils, it's just all ate up around the throat.
You just gave a perfect lesson in what makes a bourbon.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to, you rewind that if you want to know how bourbon's made. That's it.
Kidding.
So and I tell you what, and we realized who's your brand, who's on brand for you, and so we wanted to be able to attract a lot of first time bourbon drinkers who wanted a premium spirit. Mm-hmm. You give, especially females. There's a lot of ladies now who like to drink a nice bourbon, but they don't like that old hot fire water stuff that's just tears you up, and then you got to pour a bunch of unhealthy stuff on top of it to tame it, right? So you got to mix it down. We're like hashtag no chaser, baby. We could just neat or on the rocks, and you're ready to go.
I love that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to get some in February, but I'm going January. January.
February 1. It's good stuff.
Sounds good.
So what have you? So obviously you built out this brand. You built something.
Yeah.
What's the slogan? You have a great little tagline.
Premium spirits for extraordinary people.
There it is. There it is. Love that.
Yeah.
So you're in some pretty big stores.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about the distribution and how you've gone about that, and maybe some successes.
Well, and tie that in because we talked about cars, we talked about helicopters, we talked about bourbon, but in my little bit of research, you got a podcast, you've got some some personal development stuff out there, so walk us through some of the challenges and that type of, from that type of angle, because I know it's not easy. I mean, you talk about it like it's easy, but you've had some big accomplishments. So.
Yeah. How do you make excellence happen? It sounds great. We listen to a lot of podcasts. As a matter of fact, I've got a podcast called The Daily Life Coach, and my next episode is called I Almost Quit. Mm-hmm. and it talks about why literally in 2023 I almost quit podcasting because I got sick of hearing people go, all you have to do is this. And it gave me this like little violent moments. I'm like, no, you don't. That's not all you have to do. Right. You're a business owner.
Yeah.
Very tough businesses, right? You guys got to grind a little bit, and a lot actually, and there's challenges that come your way, and you know, I hear people like real estate. All you have to do is do that, flip that, get an apartment building. Where's the cash coming from? Access to capital is not just there for everybody,
right?
Especially not now, and so that frustrates me a lot when I hear people say all you have to do is. So I really. But at the same time, you don't want to deter anybody and scare them away from trying, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to find the balance of saying, you know, for me, I run in like, I'm almost like a software, an application designer, right? I like to run in sprints. We're going to program for 6 weeks, and we're going to take, or for 2 weeks, we're going to take X amount of weeks, and we're going to run for a while. And then we're going to go find all of our different areas that need patches and improvements, and then we're going to sprint for 2 weeks, and then we're going to operate for 6. And I like to have these cycles that I can push people real hard, almost to their end, and then back them down and let them breathe for a minute, and then execute. So they go, oh, that worked. People get to see, you know, the benefit of what they just did. So that's what I love about working outside. When I used to do landscaping and lawn service, you go cut something, you trim a tree, you cut a hedge, you plant a flower, and you look back behind you and you say,
you got instant gratification right there.
Looks good, right? Well,
or not instant, but you know.
Right. And then, or you get on a project that's like a grinder, like it's gonna be you're gonna be sawing down a forest and fighting alligators for 7 months, and you're like, I hate this crap, you know. So you got to be able to allow people to grow, breathe, experience a win. And I see so many business owners and so many people just beat it to the ground to the point where they couldn't see the victory if it was standing in front of them. They lose sight of where they're going to go. Or they'll read some guy's book that says all you have to do is these 3 things. And they're so busy trying to do those 3 things that they have all the other business that happened around them that just lifted their head for a second. They could have made millions of dollars, but they're so busy trying to pound out that guy's plan.
We hear a lot of people giving advice these days about hustle culture and, like, you know, everybody, like you said, everybody's got their ideas. If it worked for them, they think they know everything just because they've had a little bit of success. But, you know, that's obviously not the whole story.
Yeah.
You know,
I did a commencement speech at a college in St. Pete. And I remember all the professors, the provost, everyone's looking at me like, who invited this guy for a moment? Because all these kids were there. And I said to them, you know, I sat in some of your sessions today. I heard a lot of what you were hearing from your professors. And I said, I just want to say one thing. Life is not always about the grind, though. I go, you're going to have to grind, but you don't have to grind every day. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. You're just doing it wrong, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, when you're actually learning, growing, you got the right people around you, the right team around you. I don't care how hard the work is. You're having fun. I've worked outside and had more fun working outside doing the most tedious, grueling work ever because I had some really smart, cool guys around me that I was learning how to run a jack and bore rig. I was like, what is a jack and bore rig? Well, we dig a big-ass pit, and we put this thing called the silver bullet in it and shoot it underneath the street so we can run 4-inch conduit so that GT or Verizon can come do and run cable and power or whatever they want to run through it. That wasn't sexy, but the things I learned working with those engineers and those old guys that knew everything about construction, I was able to bring into my life at another point. Even the leadership, you know. And so enjoy the moments you're in, you know, the fun moments. You don't have to grind all the time. If you listen, you don't have to grind all the time. You know, and that's the thing. It shouldn't always be a grind.
No, I agree. It's funny you even bring that up too, because we started, you know, open enrollment period yesterday, which is, you know, January 1st, March 31st. And so that normally is a sprint, but we just got off of a sprint, which is AEP, October 5th to December 7th. So it's like, you know, or October 15th. So 40 something days. And the first meeting that we had yesterday, you know, I told the team, I said that, you know, the goal for this year is elevation, right? This is the year of elevation. It's kind of the theme. And I said, but today I want to talk about something completely different. That's patience. Yeah. And I'm like, I know you guys weren't coming in here expecting me to talk about patience because I got the least of it in this room probably. I said, but right now we're in a season where, you know, it's time to refine some of the process that we've, you know, implemented. And it's time to slow things down a little bit. And they're like, what? but I just felt like that was necessary. And it's cool what you said about sprinting for 6 weeks and then run. You didn't say walk. You said sprinting for 6 weeks and then running for a couple of weeks after to experience those wins and to breathe a little bit. And as I was telling JC over there is avoiding burnout and fatigue and stuff. So that's tough, man. It's interesting to hear from you.
I joke with JC a lot, and because he's my resident old dude. But let me tell you something. I surrounded myself with guys and women who'd been there before and done it, and because I listened to them, I was able to compress my learning curve. It's almost like a video game. Give me the cheat code, man. Every time you pop into the screen, I'm going to kill you. Bam, you're back out of the game again. Because I got all the cheat codes. I know where everything's at. I got all the best upgrades. And so it's like a time compression by learning from other smart people. And I think some people want to tell their grind story so bad that they miss the easy part. And you got to have the easy part, because if not, you burn everyone out around you and you'll miss the opportunities.
Yeah.
You got to slow down to speed up sometimes.
So I want to get into that a little bit. We're going a little long here, but that's fine. This has been educational and fun all at the same time. But the M&A stuff, let's talk about Morgan Auto specifically.
Yep.
Morgan Auto's, you first acquired one business, right? Has the model always been, acquisitions, or have you had some liquidity? Have you had some exits in that space as well? Like, what's the
very few. There's been just a couple strategics that were maybe a brand that we were taking out of the portfolio, or there was an acquisition, and it was with Lotus at the time, and Lotus was one of the stores we got during the acquisition, but during that period, Lotus wasn't importing cars into the United States. It was during the recession period.
Right.
So, you get rid of that brand. It's like, do you wait 18 months to see the next new car arrive, or do you sell it off or close it? But
so just one-off events.
Just one-off events. And so we're, very specific about the brands, the markets that we're in. And one of the biggest things is that we have a development program. So we develop our next leaders all the time. And so we have a leadership academy that there's always a bench of people that are waiting for their next stop, waiting for their
Morgan Auto, you're saying?
Within the group. And that was like a huge deal for us, because if you don't have tomorrow's talent picked out already, you got problems. I mean, you can actually outgrow your capital, and you can outgrow your human capital.
Yeah.
And so as a business owner, the more, you probably know better than any of us. I mean, in the roofing business, if you don't got your next foreman, your next whoever, team lead, I mean, literally you could sell jobs you could never even get to.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So same thing. It's like being able to develop talent is a big deal. So even for for Dunamis Premium Spirits, it's like people ask me, how do you go from flying helicopters, the film business, automotive, technology, all this other stuff you've done, into liquor? What do you know about liquor? So, Mr. Hater, I'll tell you what I know about it.
So, Mr. Hater.
When someone asks you, what do you know about something, that's normally not a nice thing. But anyway, so I learned that 20 minutes a day, I can learn anything on the planet. And I tell people, start out with 20 a day. Immerse yourself, not just, I watched a video. Immerse yourself for 20 minutes a day, and you can learn anything. And I say at 21 minutes, shut it down. Don't even give yourself 22. Shut it down. Leave yourself wanting more. But 20 minutes a day. I'll see people say, 2 months from now, I'm going to take a class. I'm going to go to a conference next year. I'm going to take Saturday next week, and no, you're not. You're not going to do it. You're never going to have that much time. If you're a mover and shaker enough that you're thinking about doing your own deal, you don't have any time.
Right.
You got to make time. You schedule that 20 minutes, and you can learn anything on the planet. So when I started learning about spirits years ago, it was spending a half a day or 20 minutes with a master in Puerto Rico, or a blender from Kentucky, or a class online. I mean, you name it, from mixologists to blenders to distillers to bartenders everyone who's in that business, I immerse myself. Hey, when you grab a bottle, what do you like when you grab that bottle? Well, female. Bottle's big, it's clunky, I don't want to drop it. I may not grab that bottle off the shelf. It's too tall. It's over 12 inches, may not fit on the shelf. All these little things I learned from talking to people who are in the business, not being the smart guy who knows everything.
Right.
And you think about it.
Trying to learn everything.
You can go buy bottles and realize you bought a bottle that no one can even sell. It looked great to me. Can't put it on the shelf anywhere. Damn restaurant can't. It's too tall. It's too weird. It's too fat. No one's ever going to touch that bottle.
Tell that to Clase Azul.
Right?
That thing works. Got a bell on the top of it.
Yeah. Look, and they went for, again, knowing your space. They're $100, 80, 70. But they're in a premium segment that they're like, we're not going for volume. And we're going to be on everybody's home bar that wants to look cool. And they do a great job at it.
They do.
But that's a hard bottle to stick
and for
on the
everybody
shelf, right?
at the club that has the sign and the sparklers come out.
Look.
Ding, ding, ding.
VIP.
There you go.
VIP.
I saw one of those the other day on a video, and it said "card declined."
Yeah, those are so good.
We need more of that. Put these haters in their place. Right.
And I tell you what, haters come in all shapes and sizes, but there's also people that you have to be careful with. These are people who love you more than anybody. They will talk you out of your business and out of trying. And I had a guy come to me once, a young guy, and he came to me. He's like, man, he goes, my mom, she talks me out of everything. She doesn't like me. She doesn't want to see me succeed. And I'm like, well, what does she say to you? And everything she said to him was like, well, you don't want to do that. You could get hurt. You could lose your money. You might lose your scholarship. And he took all those things as my mom didn't believe in me. Mm-hmm. She was actually so afraid for him to fail. She coddled him so much that she was preventing him from moving forward, and he actually thought it was a negative attack. And I went, that's just too much love there, son. That's all that is. So you go tell your mama. No, just kidding. But no, we do that stuff all the time.
Absolutely.
We can actually, people who love you the most don't want to see you fail. And so I say, look, find balance. When you immerse yourself and the more people hear you talk about something and learn and grow, they're like, okay.
He's rounding himself out.
He's rounding himself out. Next thing you know, they're your first investor. And so when people tell me, no one will invest in my company, I'm like, well, give me 3 reasons. How much money have you put in? Well, 0. Well, I'm out too. You just said you're not worth a damn penny. By not putting in your own money, I'm out. I'm trusting you on this. So,
Yeah.
It's the little things. I've started companies with almost no money, and they've made tons because I brought so much experience to the table. But I learned that experience. It had value because I'd failed so many times to get that experience. And so my failures actually I became an expert at some things because no one else tried. I was the guy who went the furthest in it. So I was the expert, and I was looking at myself at the time as a failure. But I was the only guy who tried, and I'd gone further than anyone. No one else had seen that. No one had hit that far. So, so you got to really look at your inventory of your assets and say, where's my value? What's on brand for me?
Can you rattle off a few of those just for people that you're working on now? I know you can't.
What type of businesses?
Yeah, I know you can't rattle them all off, but things that people would find interesting.
I'll give you an example.
I mean, the liquor company is pretty darn interesting.
I'm going to use that one for example, right? So I bought property pre-COVID, and then COVID happens, and I've got this property now that I was going to build it out for about $4.5 million. Next thing you know, COVID hits. What happens to the price of materials? Everything goes to the roof. Cost of labor goes to the roof. Now that $4.5 million project's now 12.
Yikes.
Doesn't pencil. You know how much liquor I got to sell to start a new liquor company with $12 million in debt out of the gate just on a facility? Doesn't pencil. So what do? So I had to go back and say, okay, I own that property. It's raw land. It's going to sit there. And then I went and leased a facility that was smaller, that I could build out, that I could afford to build out for a few $1 million. And I built it out. And I started the business. And now circle back. When your volume's up, your production's up, your name recognition's up, now I get to go back to this project. The cost of construction have come way down. And I've gained so many fans in the market, in the area along the way, that now people are showing up saying, hey, I did the project on this, and you've already got a lift station over here. Hey, by the way, I worked on this project. You've already got this over here. You don't need any of that stuff. And so all of a sudden, people start coming to you when they say, you're going to make it. I'm a fan of what you're doing, and how can I be a part of it? I mean, I had like a retired bio engineer show up saying, what's your CIP and process to clean all your stills? Well, here's my process. It's pretty good. You want me to come by for free and help you? Yeah, you can come on by Thursday. I'm going to go, no, I don't need you. I'm really smart. No, bring
Right.
your ass on by here.
Absolutely.
You need an outfit? Or I'll give you a Dunamis polo. Let's get at it. And so you
Welcome
build
to the team,
Yeah,
you know?
you build fans along the way. And people that have just looked at me over the time and seen the struggle and then seen you come through the struggle, become fans and say, hey, I've been watching you for a while and how can I help? And so you got to be able to get to that period. And that's why you'll hear all the time businesses fail in that first 3 years, is because it normally takes a few years for someone to even think you're going to make it. Even a distributor. You can't go to a distributor 6 days old and say, I want you to distribute my liquor, unless you just left Bacardi and you're the CEO over the Bacardi and you just opened a new brand, right? Or I started Kettle One back in whenever. So when you're new, you've got to start with, small distribution, then you go to a mid-sized distributor, and then you may go to a large distributor. And you have to have enough name recognition and following and volume for them to put you on the shelf. Because you got to think of it this way. If I represent Tito's vodka.
Right.
And you have a vodka brand. Why would I take Tito off the shelf or even move some vodka shelf or move some shelf space to slide Tito's over to put your vodka space in,
Right.
your vodka in? What's different? What makes it unique? So you have to come in and you have to really know how to enter the market with your brand. Because if you just get in line behind everybody else and think you're going to, your story, your origin story is so cool, unless you're Superman or Black Adam or somebody, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
Right? So you have to say, where do I want to enter the market? Am I going to be the cheapest? Am I going to be the most expensive? Am I going to be a high quality brand? And so Dunamis really allowed us to say, we want to be excellent. We want to have a brand that we can support anything that's excellent. Like, we're doing scholarships for kids who want to learn aviation. We're paying some ground school scholarships. So that's something, reach out to us for. If you know a kid who wants to learn how to fly, we're paying for their ground school. I don't know if you're a kid.
I still qualify.
You look a lot younger than I am, but I don't know if you're a kid. And we may even change the age, because here's the other thing is this. What happens to most kids, most young people, because they're not kids for sure, most young people between the age of 18 years old and 25?
They go to college.
And then what?
Get in trouble.
I mean,
No,
think
they
about it.
Get a job. I don't know.
Think about this. I want you to think
Their
about this for a
dreams
second.
die.
Their dreams die.
There you go.
Their dreams die. And here's what happens. I did my job. I'm a parent, 18 years old, hit the bricks. I raised you up. Your college is paid for. Now go hit the streets. The world's a grind. The world is tough. The world's going to kick your ass. Good luck, kid. We'll see you. And this kid goes out and he's terrified, right? The world's a grind. The world's difficult. It's mean. It's going to kick my ass. And they go out in the world and then they see this job and they go, the first thing I see, I'm going to grab a hold to it because I need to, because this world is brutal. It's brutal. It's terrible. It's horrible. And, I've seen parents where their kids are like, I don't think I want to take a gap year. And they're like, oh, no, you're no gap year. And then I've seen parents who say, what are you going to do in the gap year? I'm going to start a business model. I'm going to go work for this company so I can learn and make sure I want my degree in that before I go and get a law degree. I'm going to go clerk somewhere. I want to go do this. Okay, go do that. So everyone's kind of got a little different path
Right.
too, And so, but these young people from 18 to 25 oftentimes get lost because they're terrified. And some people talk about wealthy people, right? I didn't grow up wealthy. But here's one thing I've learned about having money and watching my kids. When you have money and your kids grow up, you can afford them the opportunity to make mistakes. And they can recover from it.
Yeah.
But if it's all the time, life is going to be brutal. If you make one mistake, you bought it, you broke it, and that's all you got as a kid. I mean, you're like, man, you're terrified. You just grab onto the first thing coming and you want to hold on to it. So I always say this, having the ability to pay for someone's, for lack of a better word, just someone's badass decisions of growing up, when you don't have that opportunity, you normally don't go as far in life. And
Yeah.
I've donated robots to some STEM programs that I tried to unstem a little bit, because you hear about how can you get women and kids who come from low socioeconomic areas to be interested in science. Science is scary. It's expensive stuff you're working with. You can hurt yourself, right? All these things that happen. So I bought these robots, and I said, here's the key. No curriculum. I'm going to give you DJI EP2 Core 2 robots, but you can't have curriculum. The people who actually listened,
play with them.
The people who actually listened, I got to see these kids develop. You got to send videos, you got to send pictures, you got to send like development updates. The kids who actually just got to come in without saying, here's the curriculum and you have to learn this by Thursday, did better because they got to come in. They were terrified to touch it at first. Kids, you see kids with their hands behind their back, like they're about to get arrested. Where's the police chief? No, just kidding. And they were terrified. And it was because their parents told them, you break it, you buy it.
Right. Their whole life, they've been told not to break anything.
Don't touch it.
And to look both ways before they cross the street. We get it.
Too careful,
Still
right?
do that, though.
Still do
Still
that.
do that.
They're swimming underwater with a COVID mask on and a football helmet. Yeah, so
Some of that's a generational problem too, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
So learning that sometimes, and I hear people go, "Oh, his parents were rich, or her parents were rich," and I go, "Think about it. Their parents may have been rich, but this kid still had to learn and grow, and the tough part for them is when you do grow up with successful parents, is now you got this chip on your shoulder. My dad's successful. My mom's a doctor. What am I going to do?" And so they will actually make bad decisions as well on the other side. So finding that balance of putting someone in an environment to say, look, you get X amount of time, X amount of dollars, X amount of free thinking to go and be great. I watch those kids become operators. I watch them become programmers, leaders. I mean, all these things around these robots, they never would have done if they had to learn a curriculum. They actually had an opportunity to think freely and become excellent and become great. That's what Dunamis is about. So we like to find, archers and snipers and pilots and people who just want to be great and don't know how to get there. And we like to sponsor some of those people sometimes.
That's awesome. Yeah. Podcasters and insurance call center owners, roofing companies.
Commercial roofing companies that are worth billions, stuff like that.
Yeah. I love it. Well, listen, that's awesome stuff. I want to bring it back to Sarasota.
Yep.
I know you've lived here for a little while. How long have you lived here?
So, 08.
08?
Yep.
Okay.
So I've been in and out since 08.
And I think that gives you, enough experience here to have seen the growth, seen the development. What's your thoughts on, all this recent growth and after, the pandemic and all that stuff that you've seen?
Here's what I love about Sarasota. Sarasota was still kind of it had the illusion of being a small town. And although it may have been small in 2008 by population size, it was mighty in power and influence and money.
Agreed.
And so probably one of the best things in my life that happened to me was coming to Sarasota, meeting some of the institutional players, the developers and the bankers and the wealth managers and the doctors and the people who were just quietly making millions and some billions of dollars, telecom giants and all these people that were here locally that were just quietly doing their thing. And so I got to learn a few things. And so for all the young people who are out there, anybody under 30, I'm calling a youngster, right? Because I'm almost 40, right? But anyway, one of the things I learned is this: successful people like to share knowledge. And so the scariest thing in the world for me is not dying in a helicopter or in my Nova doing 200 miles an hour. It's dying without leaving a legacy and sharing what I know. And so when you get around people, whether it's a Warren Buffett or a David Grain or a John Colon, I don't know how you got in there, John, but no, just kidding. But when you're around these guys and ladies, I mean, Gracie and Catherine Harris, and I mean the women here are powerful, right? So all these people that are powerful players in Sarasota, they don't want to die with this knowledge. They want to pass it to someone else, and it's worth probably trillions of dollars if you can leverage their $1 billion idea, right? So take some time and learn something from these powerful individuals because, again, they accelerated my growth. Gary Roberts, another well-connected, great guy who was actually part of bringing Lamborghini to Sarasota, recommended me to Lamborghini corporate while he was in California at an event. And then I had another guy from Audi division was recommending me when he was in Germany to Lamborghini, to the CEO. So they're hearing my name in different parts of the state and country. So when you have those type of individuals who are connected, who are creators, inventors, they understand cash flow and capital, and their names are powerful, learn something from them. Because these people really, my dad was the first guy to teach me business, and then I went to, graduate school in Sarasota, and even my business partner, Larry Morgan, when you've already built $1 billion company, and then you take a strong, good-looking guy like me and throw that in there, that's dangerous, right?
Hell yeah.
That's a pretty awesome take on Sarasota, though. We've asked that question plenty of times, and that's a very unique take as far as the education passed down. So, all right, so great take on Sarasota. I think Trey's got a good Sarasota-based question that you seem qualified to answer with all your driving ability.
Let's do it, Trey.
All right. So Tominator Law wants to know, what are your feelings on roundabouts? Do you love them or do you hate them?
So coming from a guy who flies a helicopter, who drives German and exotic cars, I love them because it takes me off a straightaway for a minute and I get to turn the wheel a little bit. So I'm not your average roundabout guy because I'm not the guy who probably stops and looks 9 ways 12 times when I go into the roundabout. I normally enter the roundabout and transition out. So I'll say this.
Transition out with my tail side.
With my tail sideways. But so roundabouts aren't horrible for me. They're very pricey proposition. So if I was going to spend the money, would I spend it on a multi-million-dollar roundabout? Maybe not. But I'm not opposed to them. And I think eventually, when I'm in a lot of other countries, you're in Europe, you're in Italy, wherever, you see roundabouts out there. And once people learn how to drive in them, they actually can become, a good thing. The problem is when you have drivers who don't know how to drive in a roundabout.
So you're saying there's a learning curve, pun intended.
There's a big curve, man.
It's a learning circle.
The circle of life.
That's right.
Can you sing the Lion King? Can you do the Circle of Life song?
That's not really my
Not your thing.
You can pull your phone out if you need the lyrics.
No.
Yeah, right. Pull the phone out. So yeah, roundabouts, I think are necessarily evil here. You know what I do like are what do they call those? The diverging.
Diverging diamonds. Yeah,
those are.
Trey didn't know what those were when we first talked about.
Diverging diamonds are cool.
I'm sure you've been on it a million times, just didn't know what it was called.
Right, because if you can catch both lights, you got a nice little straightaway. Yeah. You can fly down.
Yeah.
Right into the roundabout.
I'm not saying I ever
right into
do
the
that
roundabout where you can rip it.
University and 75, that nice diverging diamond.
So we've had a lot of great guests on here. A lot of people that I've recommended great guests as well. With everything you said about Sarasota and the knowledge being passed down and all of the great people that are doing their thing quietly, surely you're going to give us the best answer that anyone ever has. But we need some recommendations on who Sarasota needs to hear from. As Felipe says, that they're, I can't even say it how Felipe says it, so I'll let Felipe say
Yeah,
it.
part of the reason we do this podcast is if you don't know these folks in Sarasota, you don't know them.
Yeah.
Right. And
I can't bring myself to say something.
There's so many stories here that people would want to hear, like your story, and they would never expect someone like Victor Young is operating here in Sarasota and actually holds Sarasota, our community, in such high esteem, right? And that we've affected your career as much as you've affected kind of us.
Absolutely.
So who do we need to hear from?
I'm going to give you guys a great name, and this is a guy who actually who works for me. He's a general manager. Actually, he's now a partner in the BMW store with me, BMW Sarasota. And the reason I think he'd be a great guest is because he hasn't always been on
Because he went through the leadership training.
Well, he has.
There you go.
But he hasn't always been on the good side of Victor Young. He's been demoted before. He's had to make some really big decisions on whether or not he's going to stay with the company because he got got the smackdown a few times, and so
I think I know who you're going to say.
Emilio Torres.
Okay.
And so I like Emilio because he was a former Wall Street guy. He was disrupted by technology. And that's something that we're all facing right now is how do you reinvent yourself when you're in the middle of being disrupted by technology. Trey's probably the only guy in this room that can't be disrupted by tech. The only guy in this freaking room.
Oh, come on.
We may all work for you one day, Trey.
All right.
Definitely, robots.
I
Can
need to work on
definitely
my
put some
leadership
damage.
skills.
We can find some robots to put roofs on.
Robots can put up the roof at one day, but they can't talk to the clients. They're
Well,
difficult.
AI
The
can talk to the
robots-
clients.
Yeah,
Email stuff, yeah.
It's got pretty good. So
Follow-up emails and stuff like
So
that.
Amelia
Roofing
Torres.
I mean,
issues.
that's one name.
Write that one down.
I'm going to give you a second name. The second name to write down.
It's got to be not affiliated with your group, though. Just to be fair.
All right, I'll give you a non-affiliated.
Oh, look, he was even good. He was like, it's my CEO of Dunamis Liquor.
the master distiller, right?
So here's the thing. And
That was
I'm
pretty
going to tell you who this person is, and then I'll give you a non-affiliated name. But here's what I like about this guy. 3.5 years ago, this guy was making $17 an hour working for me as an assistant head coach. Or no, not a head coach. He was just an assistant coach for my USL soccer team. USL was Sarasota Metropolis FC. And during COVID, I shut it down because of a couple years with no fans, no merchandise sales, no butts and seats. I just couldn't afford to keep it going. Well, I could, but in my right mind, my mind was going, buy a helicopter and blow this popsicle stand. So, but love soccer. But this guy started with me making $17 an hour as an assistant coach. I closed the soccer team. I won't tell this whole story, but fast forward today, the guy is a property owner, an investor.
Is his name Marcus Walford?
Nope. General manager of Lamborghini Sarasota is Raj Singh.
Okay.
He was new to town, and he went from being brand new in Sarasota 3.5 years ago to being the general manager of one of the most iconic car brands in the world.
Wow.
Sarasota's that type of market. That's what I love about Sarasota.
He was making $17 an hour 3 years ago. Now he's GM at Lambo.
Yeah.
I love that.
So
We got to get him on for sure.
Yeah, and he's 28 years old.
All right, now the non-affiliated.
28. All right, non-affiliated.
Non-biased opinions over here.
Non-biased. Okay, let me think of an industry.
I love the explanations he gave, too.
Yeah, maybe
Okay,
after that
like-
we get my foreman Daniel on. Daniel Sanchez.
We got to get my
I would listen to Daniel, your foreman.
Yeah, when we met him, he didn't speak any English. Now his English is perfect.
Probably making all the jack too. So I'll give you a kid under 30, and the reason I'm doing this is because there's a lot of young guys that are doing things in this town that we don't get to hear about because, you know.
Two of them are on this podcast. One of them, it just doesn't qualify as young anymore. That's all.
Well, he's got a nice beard though. Look at that beard. I tried to grow mine out for this because I knew he was going to be here, but I couldn't.
That's the balm.
That is
That's the balm.
Is the balm the beard
working.
balm?
You know, I use the products from the ethnic hair care. Work wonders.
Kind of
You don't think
racist.
Victor
I'm
does?
You're right. I use it all the time. Just don't put too much
I'm
on
pretty
it.
sure Victor's one shade darker than you. Anyway, so.
There we go. This is not Brad's area of expertise either.
I was trying to tell him about a hair product one day, and he was like, "Bro,
No, no, probably not.
Those are in a different aisle at the Walmart.
So I'll give you this guy. This guy is the son of a restaurant owner here in town, and he's growing a business. And I think he's one of those kids to watch. He's in his probably 26-ish range, doing pretty good for himself. He's bought some properties. He's very focused, and the way he looks at money and the speed of business, I think he'd be a great guest. His name is Shuby Manny. And his family owns Tandoor restaurant.
Oh, yeah, on University.
Tandoor.
That's a good spot.
Real smart young guy.
Okay.
So I like those guys with the eye of the tiger who can actually run a play. And he's that kind of kid. He's that kind of guy. Because I think we got a lot of really young guys in Sarasota. But here's what scares me about a lot of the young entrepreneurs in Sarasota is they're coming online during COVID. And so they haven't really seen tough times. They've only seen an up market. And so I think some of these young guys could benefit from hearing about how do you not participate in a down market or a flat market or a market where you've got to really sell some shit. Mm-hmm. You know, you're just not out there going, I'll show up because I've got enough people to do it, or I've got one on the lot, or I've got one on the shelf, and so you're lucky. It's your lucky day.
Oh,
right?
You're not proving your worth as a sailor with the wind at your back.
No.
Right?
Not at all.
You need to be in those difficult conditions.
Look, I flew my helicopter back from Canada 2 weeks ago from Montreal, actually Mirabel. So
To Florida?
To Florida.
A helicopter?
Yeah. and it was snowing like crazy.
No shit. How many stops?
Let's see. I went from Montreal to Albany. Did the Hudson transition. That was super cool. Flying down the Hudson past West Point, down through Manhattan, orbited around the Statue of Liberty. Just all those helicopters in your airspace everywhere, and just being on a swivel. Amazing view of the city. So you go from like mountains and snow, congested traffic to the city to like Monmouth, New Jersey, where it's like just cold and nothing going on, And then we hopped over from there to Newport News, Virginia, Newport News to Charleston, South Carolina. Pretty cool flight from there, through Baltimore and Maryland and all those different areas. And
That's
then
an adventure.
from Charleston to down the coast, watched all the Carolinas and St. Simonson Island and Hilton Head and just all the cool stuff down the coast of Florida.
Maybe I see the point of flying a helicopter.
It's
now.
so cool. Look, when you're at 600
Still
feet,
not doing it.
you should do. Look, I did clearly a poor job of enticing you to be a helicopter pilot. All the death talk probably
You
threw you off a little
you
bit.
sold me on the opposite for sure.
But cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Lead with the crash landings.
Look, by the time you do that, the way you look at your business, when you fly a helicopter, you got 1 million pre-flight checks, and you're on a swivel, and your brain is processing all these controls, sounds. You're looking for wire strikes, birds coming, all these different things. And at the same time, you're going, by the way, Felipe, to your right, there's Selby Gardens right over there. And to your left, and you're basically a tour pilot. So your brain's got to be in all these different places at one time. It's such a cool thing for a
That is
business
very
owner.
cool.
It really makes you take an inventory of your business in so many different ways, all at once, deconstruct it and put it back together. It's kind
It's
of
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, man, I don't even know if we could. I don't even know what we could say about that.
we
It was
could
a
go
great-
on.
Felipe, closing remarks.
We could go on.
That was a
for
great one.
A long time.
That was probably one of my favorites.
We haven't even touched on everything that Victor does or has done, and clearly he's got more pearls of wisdom to go around, and some great impressions on Sarasota as somebody who's, does things in all of the region. But we got to end the show sometime, and
we
Victor,
matched the
we're gonna
clock.
have to have you back. I think.
I think so.
So
I'll come back. We'll do this again. Look,
appreciate it.
I think so.
Thanks.
You guys are
Have you
awesome.
back.
Thank you,
Thanks
man.
for being here.
Appreciate
Thanks for
you.
a great
in the
a great
new
podcast.
studio. You wait till you see the Morgan Auto studio we're building over there. It's
there we go. There we go.